friends, my name is Marina and this is Rapunzel Fiber Arts. Today we are in my kitchen and we are going to be doing something a little bit different. Usually we play with fiber here, but today we're going to be baking. I have a cookie recipe that I make every month or two. I make a double batch, freeze it as balls of dough, and then whenever I have the urge for a freshly baked cookie, I pull out one or two of those dough balls, stick them on a cookie sheet, stick those in the oven, and then 10 minutes later or 15 minutes later, I have a freshly baked, delicious, amazing cookie. So I'm going to take you along for this process today. I am going to show you how I brown my butter, how I make my own brown sugar, and then at the end of today, we're going to have a giant bag full of cookie dough, and we should be set for a couple of months. So stay tuned, stick around, and it should be fun. All right, friends. So the very first thing we have to do is brown our butter. Now, I do a double batch because I like this to last me quite a while, so I don't have to repeat the process so often. So I do a full pound of butter. Again, this is not something I'm eating all at once. This is something that I consume over the course of 2-3 months with the help of my boyfriend and whoever else is around and wants a freshly baked cookie. So I just go ahead, get these all in my pot, just like that, and then we'll get this warming over a medium heat until we start to see some browning. And I'll show you what that looks like. I'm fairly new to this recipe. I will link it down below. It's from one of my favorite YouTubers. Her name is Becky over at Acre Homestead. You should definitely check her out if you like this video because she is pretty much a whiz at baking and cooking and canning and preserving food. She's very impressive. Definitely something to aspire towards. But if you like this video, you'll probably like hers as well. So I've got all 4 sticks of butter in here, and then it's just gonna go over medium heat on one of my stovetop burners, and we're gonna melt the butter and then get it to start heating and get that browning reaction. So once that starts taking place, I will update you. But first, we have to make some brown sugar. All right, friends, I am back. I have a bowl, I have some white sugar, and I have some molasses. So all you need to make your own homemade brown sugar, which is nice and fresh and very I'm making a sugar mess, friends. All right, we saved it. Well, we kind of saved it. I still made a mess. That's okay, we'll clean up later. Oh gosh, what was I saying? So, to make brown sugar, all you need is white sugar and molasses. You mix those together and that creates brown sugar. So this recipe, doubled, calls for 3 cups of brown sugar. So to make that, I'm gonna scoop out 3 cups of white sugar. Hopefully I have enough in here. I might not, but I have more. Yeah, it looks like we've got a little closer to 2 cups here. So there's 2 cups. Just one sec. We'll get our last cup from here. Now we will also need a cup of white sugar, so I am gonna have to go get the other sugar from the pantry, but that's okay. So, I've got 3 cups of white sugar in here. So all we're gonna do is take our molasses, and I'm gonna get a spoon and scoop 3 or 4 tablespoons into this bowl. So I've got my molasses, And I'm just scooping out, I'll probably do 2 of these spoonfuls per cup just to get a nice brown sugar, because this doesn't hold a ton of liquid in this spoonful. So I'm just adding it, drizzling it all over on top, and then I'll show you how I mix this in. Let's see, that's 4. Here's 5. And 6. All right, hang on, I'll show you what this looks like. All right, friends, so this is our white sugar and molasses. So I'm gonna mix this in a little bit. I'm gonna have to get in here with my fingers. That's how I generally have more success, because stirring like this doesn't really combine the molasses in very well. So what I will do is just go in and with my fingers distribute that molasses. And you can see, well, not quite yet, but you can kind of see these bits of brown sugar that I'm making in with the white sugar. So I'm gonna put the camera down so I can get both hands doing this. But this is how you make brown sugar. You just combine molasses and sugar, white sugar, and it creates brown sugar. All right, friends. So here we have all of our brown sugar made. It looks fabulous. You can see it's pretty well integrated. There are still a couple white bits in there, but it doesn't have to be perfect. We're gonna be mixing this up with some white sugar anyway. But yeah, that's how we do brown sugar. I'm very excited. I really recently learned how to do this, and very, very pleased that I can make this in my own kitchen now. All right, friends, so our butter is fully melted. It's currently lightly boiling, maybe at a low simmer. And I'm just gonna leave it there for a little bit because we need it to brown, and the only way we're gonna do that is get it heated for an extended period of time. So while that keeps going, I'm gonna mix our dry ingredients. So again, this is a double recipe, so it's pretty big. So we're gonna do 5 cups of flour here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So there's all of our flour. And we've got a couple other ingredients that we have to mix into this. So we've got a 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. And then 2 teaspoons each of baking soda and salt. And again, I will link this recipe. I'm doing a double batch of it, which is why my numbers are twice that's on the recipe page. But that's how I like to go about doing this. I find it's more efficient, especially with browning all that butter, to do a double batch as opposed to 2 batches over a longer period of time. All right, so there's all of our dry ingredients. Mix those up with one of my measuring spoons just to get them pretty well combined. The butter's still looking good, so I'm gonna give you a little glimpse of what that's doing right now so that you know what to look for. All right, friends, so here's our butter. You can see that the film on top is kind of yellowish, white around the edges. You want that to turn yellow or golden, and that's when you know it started to brown. But I will show you again once we get there. All right, friends, so you can see we've lost that film on top, and this is kind of just simmering pretty intensely, which is what we want. And hopefully soon it'll start turning kind of a toffee color, a light brown, and then we'll know that it's done. All right, friends, it looks like we're about there. See that brownish color underneath the foam? I think we're getting there, friends. I think it might be time. I'm gonna give this a sniff. You want it to smell kind of caramely or nutty, not like butter. Yeah, see that brown bit rising? I think we're done. I think it's time to take it off the burner and add it to our sugar. All right, friends, so we have successfully browned our butter. I can't really show it to you because of the angle we're at, but I did show it to you a moment ago. So hopefully you can kind of see that brownish color on the bottom of the pan. That's how we know we're there. And it smells very nutty and kind of caramely. Yeah, it's done. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this and add it directly into our sugar mixture. We've got our brown sugar that we made ourselves, and then I added a cup of white sugar to that as well. And we're gonna just add this straight into the mixer that has the sugar in it. And then after a minute, we're gonna add eggs and vanilla, and then let it sit until it cools to room temperature, and then we'll add those dry ingredients. All right, friends, so here I go adding the butter to my sugar, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and scrape all of that browned buttery goodness out of the bowl and get it put in the mixer, stick my beater arm onto my mixer, and then mix it on up. All right, friends, I think I'm gonna give this a minute because to the touch, this bowl is still very, very hot, and I don't wanna accidentally make scrambled eggs in here. So I'm gonna let this cool down for maybe 10 or so minutes, and then we will add our eggs and vanilla, and then let it sit a little bit longer until it's time to add those dry ingredients. All right, friends, we have 4 eggs, 2 egg yolks, and 4 teaspoons of vanilla, which are now good to go in the mixer. I think it's cooled down enough that I'm not super worried about cooking those eggs. Mix them up. All right, friends. So here is all of our wet ingredients combined. We've got the butter, both kinds of sugar, eggs, egg yolks, and vanilla. Over here, we've got all of our dry ingredients and then the chocolate chips that we're gonna use. But this needs to cool down even more before we can add those dry ingredients. We need this to be just about room temperature. So I'm going to let that cool for probably an hour, maybe 2, and then we can go ahead and add our other ingredients. All right, friends, it's been about an hour. This is not cool to the touch, but it's no longer hot to the touch. It's barely warm. So I'm gonna go ahead and start adding our dry ingredients and then our chocolate chips, and then we'll be all set to start rolling this up into bowls. So I'm gonna go ahead. I've got all my dry ingredients here. Got a 1 cup scoop that I'm going to use, and just scoop it on in. All right, friends, so I am just adding that flour mixture in sections. I'm doing it in 2 different groups just so that I don't lose any of it outside of the mixer. And then I'm just gonna stir it on up. And while that's going, I'm going to take my chocolate chips and measure out about 3 cups, which end up being the entire rest of the bag. And then I'm going to go ahead
Oh, I'm still scooping. Still scooping out some chocolate chips. And then I'm going to add that to my entire mixture. And then it will be ready to start scooping.
All right, friends, here is our cookie dough. It smells amazing. It looks delicious. And now it is time to start getting it on a cookie sheet.
Alrighty, so here I have set up at the kitchen table, just scraping off my spatula, and then I just go ahead and start rolling these into about 1 to 2 inch balls. It depends on kind of where I get started, and then I try to make them the same size as that. I think the recipe calls to make them a 2 inch ball, but I like to err on the side of smaller because that way I'm eating less cookies. I could probably have put this in the fridge for a little bit to cool it just a touch more, because I found that my hands were getting really encrusted with dough. You can kind of see my palms are getting really, really doughy, and it was just kind of hard to hold its shape. So I do think that if next time I do this, I'm going to go ahead and probably stick the batter or the dough in the fridge so that it can cool a little bit more and be a little bit more solid. And that should make rolling these into balls much, much easier, and a little bit less messy on my hands. Because by the end of this whole tray of cookies, I was definitely my hands were pretty well coated, and I was not a fan. So you can see I'm about 2/3 of the way done filling up this tray. I pretty much filled it completely. I managed to make 85 cookie dough balls, which is great. That should last me quite a while, and they all fit on the one cookie sheet, so I didn't even have to bake any today. And so I'm overall very happy. Once we're done with filling up this tray, we'll go ahead and get them stuck in the freezer. But I'm gonna finish up getting all of these cookies balled up first, obviously. So here we go, straight into the freezer on top of all my other frozen stuff, and just rearrange it so it's a little bit more stable, and then it should be good. So now these have been in the freezer for 2 or 3 hours. You can see they're very solid, and I am just individually peeling off the cookies, or the cookie dough balls, because they're pretty stuck together. Again, this probably wouldn't be as bad if I had cooled the dough before I rolled it into balls, but I think this ended up working out fine. They weren't mushed together to the point that I couldn't separate them or anything like that. And the cookies look like they're in good shape, so I'm not worried about these turning out badly. I've already had 1 or 2 of them, and they did turn out good, so no worries there. This batch is a good batch, which is fantastic. So I'm just going ahead and pulling off each individual cookie and getting it bagged up. I think in a minute this bag will be full, and I'll have to grab another one because, well, if it's full, I can't fit any more in. So I'm going to go ahead and try to seal this up, and I think I have to take 1 or 2 out before it successfully closes. But I get it closed, and then that's going to go in the freezer, but I have to grab another bag real quick that has a couple leftover cookies in it from the last batch, and I'm just going to throw these in, and then I'll be all done.
All right, friends, we are done. Can finally take my hair down. Anybody with hair longer than short knows that you gotta put your hair up before you do any baking, or else it's gonna get in your food. So we've got a whole bunch of cookies prepped and ready to go in the freezer. this is what I do. I make a whole bunch of these, and then I just pop 2, 4, whatever out at a time, stick them in the oven for 15 minutes, a couple minutes more than the recipe calls for because they're from frozen and not from thawed dough. But yeah, I just bake these for about 15 minutes, and then I have freshly baked cookies whenever I want, which is pretty fantastic. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up so that I know that you liked it. Comment if you have any suggestions on how to make these cookies even better than they already are, because believe me, they are amazing. Subscribe if you want to see videos like this or videos that are a little bit more crafty than this. That's what I usually do. And I can't wait to see you in my next video. Bye, friends.